Okay, I am calling this meeting to order. This is the Milton Warrant Committee. It is February 26th, 2026. And the members that we have right now, I will apologize in advance because I'm running Zoom as well as chairing the meeting, and I'm definitely not good at least one of those. The members that we have all remote are myself, Jay Funling, Elaine Craighead, Lorraine D., Brian McGuire, Cecile Yang, Larry Johnson, Macy Lee. I'm just reading people's names out. I see Nick and drawing a blank. Tangney. I know your last name. And Ron Sia. That is all of our members at the moment. I expect more to join soon. So we have a quorum. The first thing on our agenda is approving minutes. Macy, can I let you take this over?
Of course. Good evening, everyone. A set of 7 minutes were circulated to the committee last week. They include December 4th of 2023, March 17th, 2025, March 20th, 2025, March 24th, 2025, March 26th, 2025, March 31st, 2025, and November 17th, 2025. Do I have a motion to approve all 7 sets of minutes, or should we do them individually?
Well, not
I make a
individually,
motion to approve
individually.
them all together.
Thank you, Brian.
Seconded.
As a reminder, you are allowed to vote on minutes or abstain as you so choose, even if you weren't at that meeting or a member of the warrant committee. So we have a motion. We have a Larry, you seconded it?
Mm-hmm.
We have a motion. We have a second. I'm going to do a roll call vote. Let me admit a member right now. Okay. I'm going to do a roll call vote. Brian,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Lorraine.
Abstain.
Okay. Macy,
Yes.
Cecile,
Yes.
Elaine,
Yes.
Nick, Nick Tagney,
I was on mute. Sorry. Yes.
Ron.
Yes.
Okay. I think I got everyone except Julia. Julia, we are approving the slew of minutes that was sent out a few days ago. Okay.
Yes.
And myself, I'm a yes. I think I got everyone. Okay. Minutes are approved. Thank you, team.
Thank you, everyone.
Now, next thing on the agenda is discussion of the Atherton Fire Station. We have our subcommittee who's been doing diligent work in this. I hope you all saw an email that I forwarded with notes from Larry Johnson and notes on those notes from the fire chief. And then I also sent you this afternoon a PowerPoint presentation that I will now be displaying. And I'm going to turn this over to Brian Walsh, the longtime chair of the Fire Station Building Committee. I have told Brian that, the time around this table is precious. Brian knows more about this town in general and these fire stations in particular than you can shake a stick at. I did ask him to, keep the stories to a minimum, keep us focused on the goal, because I said that's the theme of the warrant committee this year, stay focused on the goal. But if you tap him any other time, he will be happy to tell you every story he has about the fire stations. So, Brian, I'm going to share my screen. I know you can't see it, but you'll have to trust that I am sharing almost soon. Yes, that I'm sharing the presentation. I don't know if I can now see who's. Well, that's my technical problem. I'm dealing with technical difficulties, but I think everyone can see your presentation, so take it away.
All right, thank you. And listen, I want to thank everyone on the Warrant Committee. I've been a town meeting member for probably some 35 years, and I had the pleasure to be the town moderator for 14, and I know how important the Warrant Committee is, and you dedicate a lot of time and energy, and it's really, really important to the town. So let me start with that. Thank you. And on the presentation, if we could, and by the way, I also want to thank Larry Johnson, who put together that summary after meeting with the chief. It's a terrific summary, and the members can read that at their leisure. But if you can turn to the first real page of the agenda in the PowerPoint, I wanted to very quickly give you an overview of the project itself.
I'm sorry, I've got to interrupt you with some technical difficulties. Does any member have this PowerPoint handy that you can share it? Because sharing the PowerPoint and also monitoring the Zoom session and letting people in is beyond my technical ability.
I can share it.
Thank you.
Give me 1 second to bring it up. Oh, you know what? Sorry, I can't share it. Okay, I'm using my work computer and I have it on my personal computer, so it'd take me a
Be
minute.
able
Does
to,
anybody
Jay.
else have it? I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I spoke too soon.
Give me 1 second.
Hey, Jay. Jay, I
Shoot.
think you're doing a great job.
If you set the bar low enough.
It's a lot.
You need to allow me to share.
I think I just did.
Okay. Try again. Yeah. Wow.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I
Okay,
can't
Brian.
see it, so just tell me. Yeah, is it good to go?
Oh yeah. So Julia, Brian cannot see what you're sharing, so that's one other
You're
wrinkle.
good to go. Good to go, Brian.
We're on the yeah. So you
Thanks.
wanted the second slide, the first slide after the title
All
slide.
right,
Okay,
awesome.
great.
Yep, the one that says agenda. Hey, thank
Good.
you all. I thought it was important just to give you a very brief overview of the project. When we started this, there was a funding approach that is referred to as the Hurley Amendment that said, look, let's freeze the declining debt from both the sixth school rebuild project and the town library, and knowing that we've got to do something with the fire stations, and we'll freeze the declining debt, and we'll use that as a funding source. And we thought we were going to be in good shape to do all three stations with that approach. So we actually, and with the advice of our owner's project manager, we said, look, let's design and put all three stations out to bid at once, because we'll get the best pricing. A larger contractor will come in and say, look, this is going to be a real large project. They'll sharpen their pencil. They'll give us good pricing. We were just about getting ready to put that bid out when COVID hit. And basically, material costs and uncertainty drove all the costs up pretty significantly. So we said, all right, look, let's go back to just bidding one station. And the headquarters, there was no question which one we had to start with. They had, and not only was a more than 100-year-old station with the antiquated bays, but it had integrated technology. I'm surprised they were able to run the whole system, what they had there. They actually had a little ticker tape system that was would allow them to control who needed to go out for a call, et cetera. Anyway, so we did the headquarters to start, and I do want to mention, though, since we were going to do all three, we spent approximately $450,000 on the design work on Atherton, and it was based on what we thought we needed for bays and capability then. The good news is we did quite a bit of analysis. We did a deep dive and had 6 different options for what we should do at Atherton, and we're going to reuse the existing station, which is what our original plan was. We're changing the bays we're adding and a few other things. But the good news is that money that we spent on the design was not wasted. It's all usable. And we're here tonight to talk about the fact that we need another $1 million to finish that design so that we can position ourselves to go out and bid. So tonight is really about the design plan for funding, not the construction costs. So if you could go to the next slide. The background really quick. So, you are the Warrant Committee. By definition, you're a numbers committee. So the background, it shows you here. In February 19, we went to town meeting for $2.7 million for design. Then we did a special town meeting in 2021, again, assuming that we're going to bid all three projects, and we requested $32,250,000. So we had a total of just under $35 million to deal with. The headquarters is done. Was opened in February 24. They've had a couple of open houses, and I certainly hope you've all had the opportunity to go in. We're so proud of what was done there. Just a little anecdote: it looks a little different than most fire stations you see because it's all glass in the front. Well, frankly, those doors in the front are an incredible advantage. They're bifold doors that you can just grab a handle and pull it with great ease and open if the electric motors aren't working. Open one bay door or all 5 bay doors with great ease. And more importantly, they're very tall, and every firefighter can see completely outside that station. They've got 2 preschools to either side of the station. They've got town hall right there, and they've got the senior center right behind it. And so having the ability to completely see what's out in front before they even pull that fire engine out is a significant safety improvement. Just want to point that out. So we completed it. I think, as you all know, we're under construction down in East Milton. We found a lot that was significantly more suitable. The existing fire station in East Milton was actually built. That was the second one built on site. It came online in 1951. 1954, the state decided to sink the expressway. That reduced the streets crossing over to the expressway which is not 75% of the district that station covers. And so it's
Mr. Walsh, can I ask Jessica move to the Atherton station?
Yep. Okay. Go to the next slide,
Thank you.
please. And just a picture of the headquarters. Then you see a picture of the East Milton station. Again, that's an artistic drawing. Let's go to the next station. This is kind of important. The next slide. It's a slide that shows it's actually a plaque that's sitting today up in front of the Atherton Street Station, although it faces the fire station, not the road, so a lot of people don't necessarily see it. It's mounted on the back of a very large rock that's in the middle. Anyway, there's a Saltonstall family, very famous family in the history of the state. One of them was a former governor, etc. They lived up in they had a house up in Brush Hill Road. They had a 3-year-old child that was killed by fire at their home in 1901. And back then, we're talking about horse-drawn carriages, and the closest fire station was down at headquarters. The family really pleaded with the town to put a station up in that area, and they did. Okay. Now, if you go to the next slide, so there was a real need for that station in 1901, and I say there's even more of a need for a station right there now. There's a lot more housing, there's a lot more traffic, but there have 3 dense groups right around that station that need to be protected. The Fuller Village, these are our seniors from either our town or others. We've got Curry College, our young adults, and everyone here, if like I have, you send your kids off to college, you certainly expect and hope that where they're going is adequate safety protection, police and fire. And so that's an important place for the fire station to serve. And then now, actually, directly next to it, Little Sprouts Daycare. So those are key issues. Then the next key issue is the health and safety of our firefighters. Atherton Street Station was built when horses were using the bays, not trucks. So the problem is, in these old stations, the bays the trucks are in are not isolated from the rest of the station. And there's a lot of diesel carcinogens that are roaming through the stations, and firefighter cancer is a real problem. Just off the top of his head, our current chief knew about 7 or 8 firefighters in his time that have suffered from cancer. Our previous 2 fire chiefs have had cancer. And a real sad story recently, about 3 months ago, we had a firefighter from the East Milton station lost his life. He was suffering from cancer. And so with the requirement for health and safety, we need to fix this station. The next slide kind of goes through a little bit more detail about, but I assure you, first of all, the two existing bays, they will be used for lighter, smaller equipment than an actual fire truck. The fire truck that's at Atherton Street right now in service, it has less than 2 inches, just under 2 inches on either side, and just under 3 inches from the roof, the opening of the bay, to get the truck in there. When mutual aid comes in to help us, for example, get some large fires. We've had them a few times recently. Mutual aid came in from Canton. They had to take the gear off the fire truck so they could back it into the station. So those two bays will be used for small things. There's a long list of needs of equipment that the fire department has, and we will add bays to the side, one directly facing out, and there's whole renovation in addition, so that we have a really adequate building. Ironically, I will tell you, just an interesting anecdote. It's a stone-based front and side of the building. Those stones, when the public was aware in 1901 of the tragedy with the salt installs, and they were pressuring the town to buy some property, they started building it with putting stones out, and then people from throughout the town, started donating stones from their backyards and building projects. And so there's quite a history. That's an incredibly unusual building. And I'm thrilled that we're able to save it. And a key point is we looked at 6 options, including completely demolishing that and building a new one. And all the options were only a few $1 million difference. And at the end of the day, if you go to the next slide, you see that the rendering of the station. At the end of the day, quite frankly, by saving that station there, it's closest to the road to kind of get out, and it really will work out well. In this artist drawing, you'll see to the right, there's a bay. Now, that's going to be a full-size bay. It's hard to tell in this picture. That's a lot larger than the 2 bays out front of the existing station. And then in behind it, there'll be 2 more bays that are down there. And actually, so it's as it says underneath, it's a rendering of 3 bay. Doesn't show you the design because we haven't paid to do an artist drawing yet of the final design. When we get ready to go out and build, we'll probably have we'll probably have that. If you can move to the next slide, please. It's just some text that says Atherton Street's project. So the May town meeting, which you are all preparing for, is going to request an approval of the additional funds for the design, about $1 million. Then it's our hope and plan that the fall special town meeting, we will look for an approval of the total cost. And if any of you may remember, when we did both of the other stations, we actually used volunteers, some professional volunteers in the community, that put together a nice video that makes a strong case. It's easier to kind of absorb a lot of information. And we're going to do the same thing for Atherton. It's our full intention to come in to both the Warrant Committee and town meeting members and give them a really thorough presentation of what the building project will be, the exact cost, etc. We do have availability that when the community did the Community Preservation Act, they actually, the first time it failed, and they actually used the fire stations as one of the things that the town could do with money from the CPC. I've had many talks with the CPC, and we're going to go in, and they're about ready to do for the first time, instead of just spending the money they have for that year, to be able to do a several-year note. And so I'm highly confident that we're going to be able to go into the CPC and get some funding. Just so you know, it's my intention to push them for $2 million, and I think we'll be successful. And so that'll help bring down the cost for the whole project also. So if you could just move to that last slide, which is Atherton Street project. And this is really, this is a slide that should be very familiar to people there. It's sort of the typical Warrant Committee recommendations. Again, I can't tell you how important it is to get this particular station done and bring the entire town up to suitable treatment of our firefighters, a space for adequate fire equipment. We need so much more equipment than when these stations were built in the huge forest fires, tank trucks, etc. So anyway, I apologize if I'm rushing too much, but with your permission, Mr. Chairman, I would stop and be happy to address any questions.
Okay, great. I'm looking around for questions.
Let's have a quick question, Brian. So the the design is for 3 bays, right? So the 2 additional bays are in the back. You mentioned in the artist rendition that they only showed the 1 new bay, but the two additional. So there'll be 3 additional bays, and the other 2 are in the back, right?
That's correct. And the reason this artist rendition does, we were doing this early on in the project, and one of the things that we did during the project is we made sure, thinking about the amount of time these stations have lasted, 2 of them over 100 years, we made sure that the fire department went through a complete review of the foreseeable equipment that they could see they needed. And we realized that, it would be best to add the 3 bays on the side rather than the 1.
Wait, the 3 bays will be on the side, or it'll be 1 on the side and then 2 in the back?
Well, so interesting. It's kind of semantics. They will be behind. They will be behind the bay that you see, because we don't. But they might. We don't actually know where they will exit out to yet. I think some of you may know the state is looking at redesigning the roads around there, and so we're going to try to make sure we make the best decision for where they exit.
Yeah, that's right. There's some talk about a rotary or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. and actually closing Atherton Street. No, not Atherton. Oh, what's the name of the side road? I'm drawing a mental blank, but yeah, we're going to take all that into consideration.
Nick, and then I see Brian after that.
Yeah, thanks. So 5 bays seems like it's the same size as the central fire station and larger than the East Milton one as I drive by and look at them. Is that right? And does that seem like disproportionate size to me? I was just curious.
So yeah, I mean, so the fire department has the options of where to store some of their equipment. In other words, it's not like the fire truck that rolls out every day to service the area of homes that they cover. And so, first thing is that the 2 small bays, excuse me, they'll be used for smaller equipment that can be stored, and the department will take advantage of using that space by saving Atherton. And hopefully I've answered it. But it's during the course of the project, and with the chair's permission, I can get this and circulate it. Can't do it tonight, but it's a whole breakdown of what's at headquarters, East Milton, and Atherton Street, and it gives you a much better idea. A little interesting note, I think it's important to tell you, all of us typically own vehicles, cars that we drive, cars or trucks, and when they need service, something breaks on them, we have a lot of options. We could go out and rent a car. Well, when a fire engine breaks, they can't go out and rent a fire engine. So not just Milton, but what the typical practice of fire stations are now, fire departments are now, when they go out and purchase a new piece of equipment, you can't really sell the old piece of equipment for a lot of money. There aren't fire stations buying old equipment for lots of reasons. But what they typically do is to make sure they keep a spare at all. So Atherton Street and East Milton, St. Agatha's, the one we're building down the engine too, they both will have a spare engine in them. There's a spare engine up at headquarters as well. So you need it's not intuitive, but you need more space than you think. And by the way, you don't park these engines outside in the elements. You keep them inside where they can be not only protected better, but allows better attention to them, and people, so the firefighters do a lot of little fixing and keeping them in shape and trying them. So So yeah, you need more bays than you think. And we, the chief, we looked at this. We had the space there at Atherton to build these extra bays. We knew we couldn't reuse those existing ones because they're just too small for any fire trucks. So they're going to use that to store different equipment there.
Yeah, I think he said a boat and then the hazmat unit, and there's also a boat for the Neponset River. There's a bunch of other equipment. Tank
Yeah,
truck.
Mr. Walsh.
For example,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, go
Mr.
ahead.
Walsh, if you can send us the list of, I think I've seen it, but I don't know where it is now. List of what trucks are stored where.
I will.
Yeah, that'd be
And
really
again,
useful.
it's a judgment. Excuse me. It's a judgment call by the chief, and probably changes. But for example, at Atherton Street, they're hoping to keep an off-road tanker with 1,000-gallon capacity in one of the bays, and et cetera. But yeah, I'll make sure that you get that. And it sounded like Larry. I think that was Larry that spoke up. I think he probably got a briefing on what's being kept where. But I'll get that to you, so you'll have that, Jay.
Thank you. Nick, I'm going to go to Brian next, but Nick, is that?
That's good. Thank you.
Okay. Brian?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's a beautiful station. It's nice you're keeping the character of it. Thanks. My question is the $1 million for engineering and design architectural. Where does that come from? Like, where do you get that number? Has it been estimated? It seems like a lot, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, it was. In fact, we had both our architect and our owner's project manager work on that. We actually knew several years ago that we were going to need probably close to that. And it isn't just, it's drawing. Keep in mind, you have to have a package ready for bid that goes out to all the contractors. So, it's got to be very detailed, very specific.
Right.
And you can't change it on them after they start. After they win a bid and they started, it's got to be right on.
So you got that number from people in the field?
People, yeah, absolutely. Yep. People in the field, our owner's project manager reviewed that. I mean, they've reviewed against dozens of stations, and our own architect.
Okay, thank you.
So, Brian, this is Jay. I've got a question that sort of follows along with what Nick Tagney asked. So, if I understand correctly, for both East Milton and for Atherton, when there's a fire, normal day, house fire, I'm not talking about Blue Hills, there's a fire, one fire engine leaves from Atherton. Do I have that right?
Well, so each of the stations have a district, an area they cover. And that's actually pretty important. When we started this project, the very first thing we did was said, hey, look,
I think
if we're going to rebuild new...
What I'm saying is,
Sorry,
how many active engines are at Atherton at any one time?
Excuse me. So there's the main engine. So here's the way to think about it. Yeah, it's how many engines are staffed, right? So Atherton staffs one, and East Milton staffs one.
Okay, thank you. So, all right, so there's one. So now, when there's a need for an engine out of Atherton, one will come out of there. And I can certainly see why people in town might look at this and say, this station has one active engine and we're building 5 bays. I think we really got to firm up. I mean, that looks like gold plating. It's got the same amount of capacity as East Milton, which has 2 bays, but this will have 5. So I think we really want to firm up what that is for. Well, I mean, that's sort of an open-ended question. Do you want to respond to that? Yeah. Yeah,
Jay, it's a good point. And you're absolutely right. We need to be able to articulate to the community when we go to get this project approved. But frankly, we know we're going to have a hazmat decom trailer that could have gone anywhere. The East Milton station, the town had to buy the lot. There was only so much size St. Agatha's was willing to sell. And so the lot here at Athens is a lot larger. So they'll have an off-road tanker with 1,000-gallon capacity. And oh, by the way, that's the best spot for it probably because it's typically the fires will be going, the large fires that require that will be up in the Blue Hills. And they're able to get to that quickly from there, a lot more quickly typically than the headquarters or the East Milton station. They'll have the hazmat trailer. They'll have an old engine to back up, which of course all three stations do that. And you're right. We're going to articulate that. We'll have to articulate it, and we're going to put it together in a video presentation that will be a lot more easy to see. We'll have actual visible pictures of what's going where.
Well, like currently, the hazmat thing that you'll say will be at Atherton, that's somewhere right now. Is that
It's at the
central?
headquarters, and
Okay.
yeah, and they're already a little cramped. They've got well, I don't know if they've talked to you folks yet, but I know that their plans are to get a tower truck and some other equipment there, and so they could reuse some of the space that's currently being used for there, and they can move that equipment up to Atherton.
Okay. And I mean, your point about needing a spare makes a ton of sense. But just because we have three stations, I don't know that a town of Milton needs three spares. I don't know they do. I don't know they don't. But just because we have three
Well,
stations,
they do, Jay.
Can I spares?
Jay,
Go on.
would
Yes,
you give
please.
me a yeah? So sometimes these engines break down right away when you're going to use them. So they visualize this: they're at Atherton,
Oh.
they're ready to go out. Right, they're ready to go out and get a fire to handle a.
Okay.
And by the way, the fire department. Yeah, so you get the point. They have a ready spare to go do their job right then, right now.
Thank you. Thank you for explaining that.
It also
No worries.
it helps with mutual aid calls too, right? From other towns. That's another important reason to have the spares as well. So you can have a spare go to the mutual aid, or your main engine go to the mutual aid, but then you always have a spare to support a fire that may be happening at the same time in Milton. You know, if your other engine is in Canton or Randolph or whatever. That's
Exactly. And if I could, because I think it would be important for you to understand, when we started this project, we said, can we get by with just two stations? There's a national standard that says 90% of the addresses that any fire station has to get to provide protection should reach 90% of them in under 4 minutes. So we did an analysis ourselves as our own committee using some interesting programs that we found. And then we actually hired a professional company, and we determined, even after we picked regardless of who was occupying the space, the best two locations in the town of Milton, could we cover the town adequately and meet the safety guidelines of 90% of them within 4 minutes? And we couldn't. We just couldn't do it. So we needed to do three, and your point about mutual aid is an excellent one. Fire departments do that a lot. I mean, it's if you're used to the business community, businesses won't be doing that, but fire departments are terrific in towns of covering and helping each other out. Because frankly, sometimes you can just have a pretty big. It was only a little over a year ago. We had a huge fire up in the Blue Hills. A lot of that property was within the Milton coverage area, but I think we had something like 5 different towns respond with mutual aid to that.
Brian, I see your hand is up. Can I ask? Hold on. All right, Brian, I'll let you ask your question while I try to do Zoom management.
Okay. Yeah, Jay, good point. I kind of agree with you, but just a thought, it might be out of scope here, but just a thought, like most of what the fire department does are emergency medical calls. They do very little on fires. Like actual burning of property or buildings.
Yeah, comparatively, right. But
yeah, so I always thought, would it be a better utilization of assets if they had, ambulance trucks or something like that? And maybe they used it, did that, had more of those, had those at every single station or house,
So, Brian, I can't tell you how thrilled I am that you asked that question. Because, no, seriously, especially after shoveling so much, it's good to have a reason to be happy. But anyway, because the town of Milton outsources its fire protection. It used to be outsourced to a resident of the town of Milton, the Fallon family. As we
You said
looked
fire.
around,
You
we
meant to say
started.
ambulance.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
You-
ambulance. Thank you,
Okay.
Jay.
Okay.
Yeah. And when we started this project, we had to go around and look at recently completed firehouses. And any building committee will do that. Anyway, it's ironic, but as we did, we looked in depth at, I think it was 8, and at least 3 of them, and this goes back now 7 or 8 years, but at least 3 of them had recently insourced their ambulance protection. And so, but it was made clear, it was almost like the kiss of death if we try to tackle that also. So we said, look, let's get the stations built, and frankly, there should be some flexibility to maybe house an ambulance or 2, in these stations. But we need to get the stations built because it's a political football. They all told us that, getting there was tough. It was a political football. The best way to get there is if you can make a case that you can meet or improve the response time to residents by ambulances leaving from your fire stations, and also reduce the costs. And so get ready for that, because that's when we get this Atherton Street station done, I think the town should take that on as a project.
Save a lot of money.
I'm not sure if that answered Brian's question. Sorry, I'm not sure if Brian Walsh answered Brian McGuire's question, and if not, then I have a follow-up on that.
Well, basically this fire station would be outfitted for being able. You could put ambulances in there, correct? If you went that route, I presume.
You could. You could, yeah. Ambulances are a lot smaller than, even
so.
These 2 Atherton Street bays that are looking in that graphic, the existing ones, they're going to be the smallest bays in the system, and they can fit an ambulance quite easily.
I guess what I thought Brian McGuire was asking was if they get a call, which is definitely, when you call 911, all 3 show up. And if the fire department gets a call that is not a flaming building, could they send out an SUV, something smaller? At the very least, they're going to save gas. Maybe that's not worth it.
Well, Jay, I think you're on the right. Yeah, you're on the right track, but it's like everything. It's a little bit more complicated. Even little things, for example, you have unions in the fire department. If they're going to share housing and all, they really want those ambulances. Because another question is, well, why don't we just take the ambulances, whoever's providing the service, and park them in the fire stations? And that has a whole hurdle of problems to get overhead. But I will tell you, you're on the right track, Jay. There are, especially the larger stations. I think Wellesley was one we looked at. They could have smaller response vehicles that have some fire fighting equipment and also their ambulances.
Yeah,
a
also,
lot of the, I'm sorry, Jay.
Go on.
The way I understand it too is a lot of the life-saving equipment that is housed on those engines, jaws of life, things like that. That's why the fire department goes, not because there might be a potential fire when somebody calls 911, but because of the life-saving equipment that they carry that the ambulances simply don't have.
Okay.
Thank you, Larry. You're excellent point.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe this is getting too far afield, but Google small fire engines, and you see people who will sell you fire trucks that are retrofitted F-150, F-250. Obviously, they don't have the capacity of the huge ones, but they would fit in Atherton better. And one reason I feel like I can bring this up is, Mr. Walsh, you and I saw each other at a select board meeting a few weeks ago, and I want to say the police chief mentioned, a retrofitted Ford F-250 that could be a fire truck, but I didn't pay enough attention to know, like he was saying, and that won't work, and that would fit in Atherton. I don't think. Did you, Mr. Walsh, can you speak to that at all? Because that would fit in the Atherton station.
Yeah, size-wise, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Again, the 2 old bays are the smallest, and the smallest, they're governed by their width and their height. You can change the doors on them, but you have to raise the whole building to improve the height, especially if you look at the picture. The current bay doors go right to the to the floor of the next floor. But yeah, there's, I mean, today.
I guess what I'm asking is, did your committee give serious thought to how about a smaller fire truck?
No,
Okay.
we didn't, and we didn't view it as our charge, quite frankly. And I look, I'm going to be really open with you. Early on, there was discussions, questions. People were coming to our public meeting and asking why aren't we doing the ambulance service? And it becomes a political football. I want to stay focused on improving the health and safety of the firefighters, improving all the equipment they carry that can handle it. And I think people can tackle those questions, but separately from what we're doing to try to get them the right buildings.
Okay.
Also,
if I can, go on.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. It's also important to remember that the Chief Madden has a plan for those bays, those smaller bays now. I think he's planning on storing the boat and hazmat, possibly a brush truck, something like that. If we can get that list of the equipment, the current equipment, and where it's stored and where it's planned to be stored, I think that'd be really useful.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nick, I see your hand. I do want to ask one question that sort of goes back to when I was talking about, do we need 5 bays? So we got the 2 bays in the old building, and we're going to build 1 bay next to it that will look really nice. And then for the extra 2 in the building out back, Mr. Walsh, I'm imagining all you need is 4 walls and a roof. So is that what we're going to get? 4 walls and a roof? And I just, and again, thinking about the money that we're going to spend.
That's the impression I got, Jay. But Brian, you obviously know a lot more than I do.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be nothing extravagant, but here's the first thing you want to solve. You want to make sure that any bay that's going to handle a fire truck is built on solid ground.
Okay.
I mean, Atherton, under those 2 existing stations, there's a space now, and that I'm sure someday that'll be shored up again, even for a lot lighter equipment that'll be put in there. So it'll be on solid ground, and so you can almost see it. I don't know if they could put that slide up with the rendering, but that first bay out front, the first new bay to the side of the building, that's on solid ground. And then the other one is, it's going to be a simple structure. What we've got to tackle is how to best, what best way to face the doors. Should they enter in from the side of the building? And then which side? The side that Little Sprouts is on, or the side where the state wants to close the road? But it's not going to be extravagant. There won't be a second floor over it. For example, when you see that in the picture here, they're going to have all their other living quarters and et cetera is already taken care of.
Okay, thank you. Nick, you had a question?
Yeah, I do. I guess I want to circle back to this whole scope question around building the fire stations for the current needs and the question of evolving the needs and the services to include the ambulance. And I certainly appreciate the way in which you define the scope and the rationale for why you defined it in the way that you did. And I sort of, get the concept of building a larger capacity to store the extra equipment that supports, potential outcomes in the town. It just feels like if you put all that together, that potentially we're spending more money than you might need to if you were to try to think about a bigger holistic solution. And it feels like there's not a really great answer to that question if you have to defend that in front of town meeting as to kind of that scope issue. And I was just kind of wondering if you thought about what that answer might be, because I feel like that answer needs, a little bit more precision than how it's come up so far in this conversation.
All right, so I'm happy to try to address it, but I'm just a little confused. What is it that you think I'm missing the point on?
Well, I think there's 2 aspects of it, and they kind of come together into, a total package that creates some concern for me. I think one is the station seems as large as Central and bigger than East Milton. And I get why, because you want to have the surplus capacity for storing equipment, and there's more land here that might support that. But that stuff is all being stored somewhere now. So, we're kind of almost expanding the scope just because we can. And then the second aspect of it is the whole question of, should the town evolve the fire service to have kind of an ambulance component in an effort to render, better services more efficiently or quicker or cheaper for a variety of different reasons. And if you put both of those things together, both of which seem like they're going to cost more money and maybe solving a problem of today rather than looking forward into a future problem, it feels like maybe the total project is larger than it needs to be. And it feels like there's not a good, kind of crisp answer as to why. There's a lot of circular
Okay, so
logic, not a crisp answer, and that I feel
well,
is
let me tackle that.
Okay.
Let me tackle some of that. First of all, I mentioned earlier that the Milton Fire Department is going to move forward with a request to have a tower truck. That'll be the first time we own one. And why tower? Well, you look at some of the projects now that are going up much higher than what we've had in the town before. But if they acquire a new tower truck, which will be kept at headquarters, it's replacing their ladder truck. But much like the other engines, the ladder truck will be kept as a spare.
Yep.
Because the tower could break down and so that ladder truck is going to take a lot of bay space up at headquarters. Both the tower and the ladder will be side by side. So some of that equipment then that makes more sense to have up closer to Blue Hills will move over to Atherton. And there's that constant going on. And my guess, and I want to be real careful here because it's just my own thinking and guess, but my guess is the town makes a decision to take on ambulances. First of all, the ambulance, basically the ambulances, the way they work in Milton, they expect them to operate kind of out of just one location, actually over at Milton Hospital. I don't know where that'll go or change, but if the ambulances, if we take that on as a service, and let's just say it made sense for that to be an ambulance to be rather than Central, put one in Atherton and one at the headquarters. They'll store that inside probably, and they'll use some more of their space that would be currently occupied for something like the off-road tanker or the hazmat, and move it out. There's a lot of complexity. So you're right. We have to make a solid case at town meeting, and we're going to do our best. We've been successful so far. Quite frankly, the headquarters station has a lot more bays than what they had, and we articulated the reason and the need for that. And I expect I wasn't prepared because we don't even have the full design yet. I don't know what else we're going to run into till we finish this design at Atherton with the bays that we put on the back. So I wasn't expected to be able to fully defend that tonight, but and you could hold me to it. I think we'll be prepared to do a much better job at town meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Walsh, I've got a couple follow-ups from that. One is the whole discussion of ambulance service. I feel like we got on either that's off topic or it's on topic. If it's on topic, let's lean into it. Let's really discuss ambulance service. If that's not part of this topic, let's not I feel like we're being drawn down a path that's really not on topic, unless it is. Does that make
Jay,
sense?
I mean, that's a good point. Yeah, it makes great sense. And it's honestly, it's a political football. Like and even the towns that insourced it, explain that a great deal. You got to be careful. So you got to really be ready to articulate it. I don't want to, again, I want to finish these buildings. I don't want to get into the discussion about whether we should or shouldn't take on ambulances. I mean, as a resident and a longtime taxpayer in the town of Milton, I think they ought to look at it. But we're the building committee. We got to get the buildings done.
Yeah, I just feel like either this is part of that topic, either that's part of this topic, or it's not, and it sounds like it's not. So let's. I feel like it's
No,
a
it's a
little
good point, Jay,
distracting.
and I'll be careful. I'll be
Um,
careful of that in the future. Thank you.
and I guess to follow up on what Mr. Tangney asked, I would love to see, and when I say see, I like pictures. I want to see pictures, like little what do you call them? Floor plans of a floor plan of maybe right now today, even before you open the new East Milton, or maybe after you open the new East Milton. Here's a floor plan of, a little cartoon floor plan of Central and how much space they have and what trucks they have there and East Milton. They've got two bays. What do they have there? I guess that's easy. It's one truck and one spare. And then, what do you have now at Atherton? And then say, very clearly, we are looking to add a tower truck, and here's why. I mean, I know I just warned about getting off topic, but that seems on topic. Are we really going to buy a tower truck? When? How much does that cost? How much more does it cost to run? What are the benefits? And if we're really going to buy a tower truck, well, then we'll put that in. Okay. To me, I'm feeling like the reason we're building two extra bays at the back of Atherton, one is because we're going to buy a tower truck, and two is because we're going to buy I think you referred to tanker truck, which I know from listening to your earlier meetings, a truck that holds extra amount of water. And so when you have a forest fire in the Blue Hills, you've got enough water for that. So one, we're going to buy a tower truck. Two, we're going to buy a tanker truck. And that's why we're adding two more bays on the back of Atherton. If that's
All right,
correct.
so Jay, please, Jay,
Okay.
if I can stop you right there because I may
Please
have
do.
created the wrong impression. Here's the point. Like East Milton, Atherton will have an active engine and a spare engine. Neither of those will be stored in those existing old bays because there's an
Okay.
open void below them. We had East Milton. We had to spend $50,000 shoring up the floor, even though we knew we were going to be vacating the building. The active engine will be in one of the bays, and the backup engine will be in the other. And then we'll provide you a list of what the three other bays or the other equipment planned for Atherton.
Okay. So it sounds like absolute minimum, we need two new bays. We might not even want
Correct.
to call the current ones bays anymore. We want to call them garages or something because they're just not functional
That's a good
bays.
point.
So
That's a good
absolute
point. Thank
minimum,
you.
we need two new bays. And then we're thinking one more than the absolute minimum. Is that the correct way to think about it?
Yeah, exactly. And here's a little insight into that. If we're going to start putting today, the standard is a 1,000-gallon capacity off-road tanker. Even that's too heavy. You don't want to put that above a void space. What is it? And so if that's located at Atherton, and those will get bigger over time. Our grandchildren will be looking at these stations if they live in Milton, because we know that they're not going to keep rebuilding these stations. And so that'll get bigger and heavier, and those heavy pieces will have to be also in one of those new 3 bays.
Okay. Thank you. So yeah, going back to, I would love to see, I think I previously saw like an Excel spreadsheet that said, here's a list of what's in the 3 stations. I want to see pictures. I want to see pictures of what's in the stations. What are we
I
suggesting of in
couldn't
the
agree
stations?
more. I give you my word. We're going to take that. We already did some of that already, but I'm going to take that on as an absolute. We've got to get done.
And when I say I'd like, I really mean I'd like the warrant committee to see that. I mean, if you just say, "Sorry, Jay, we can't do
Yes.
it until April," well, then we'll too bad. But if we could see that in the next week or two, I'd be delighted.
I don't know about a week or two, but as soon as I can, we'll get them to you. I think we have some already. Don't forget, we're a volunteer committee too. It's a, I'll take it as we have to do it, and we'll get it to you as soon as possible.
Larry?
Yeah, Jay, I just was wondering if, it would be nice if Nikki was here for this, but, she did a lot of research into the financing of this. Do we want to talk about that at all? It seems like it's another whole discussion.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if we're winding up on this discussion. I plan to have at least two evenings that are partially discussed this towards Atherton, this being one of them,
Right.
and the other one we could maybe focus more on the money part,
Yeah,
and
because that's complicated
possibly
too.
vote on that evening. So
Yeah. Okay, great.
yeah,
That's good.
that's
Thank
my
you.
way of saying I was planning on having one more meeting to talk about Atherton at least.
Because I spent a lot of time trying to wrap my head around it, and I think I got there, but I don't know.
She's a finance professor.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
That
Much
already.
rather have her do it.
Nick Milano.
Hey, good evening. I'm happy to join that one as well. So just let me know when you plan that for, and I can help fill in any gaps that's necessary in the financing piece. I just want to clarify for everybody that the town has purchased a tower truck already. It is coming in the fall. So I just wanted to add just a bit of clarity. So we, in 2022, the town meeting voted to approve purchase of a tower truck that is arriving in lieu of buying a replacement ladder. So when that arrives, the current ladder that is operating will go into reserve status, and the tower will be the primary large apparatus that's driven around town. So I just want to make sure we clarified that. And the ambulance piece is a lengthy conversation. Happy to engage on it further, but there's a lot of aspects to that conversation that I think Brian was alluding to. So it's just it's a lengthy, it's a complicated one. So just keep that in mind. There are a lot of pieces to it.
Okay. Yeah, I thought of calling on you earlier. I mean, you've listened to the last 45 minutes. Is there anything else you'd like to?
No, I thought the conversation was helpful. I think it reflects a lot of the conversation that the Fire Station Building Committee has been having and wrestling with, particularly around, preference being a 5-day answer up at Atherton. What that exactly looks like is what this money will help put to bed. To Jay's point about a simple structure behind to pull equipment out of reserve status and put into operational, I think is the concept. So now it's about designing that, putting that to work and making sure that that makes sense. And this is a two-step process. So obviously we'll have to come back again in the fall with a revised budget amount based on a cost estimate and based on plans that will give everybody a little bit more certainty as to what the project is. Right now, it's not quite conceptual because it's a replacement station, but I think that creates a little bit of it just makes it a little bit tricky to truly visualize. But by the time we come back in October, we'll have hardened cost estimates with plans and everything ready to go.
Yeah. I will say, you say it's a two-step process, which it is, multi-step process, but things get momentum. And if there's significant concern in the town that 5 bays is too much, better to express that now than after we've spent $1 million having an architect design a 5-bay station, for example.
Agreed.
So I will ask the committee, again, we will discuss this at another meeting. We may even have Mr. Walsh as a guest at that meeting if he will come. But does anyone have any more questions for Mr. Walsh? Hearing none?
No, I just, just to
Oh,
add, Jay, I agree. I think it's
shoot.
a lot of moving parts on this, and it would be nice to kind of see everything tie together. But I agree. Thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah, I would love to see that. That's a really great idea, Jay. Yeah, I would love to see that.
And I hear you all loud and clear on that. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Walsh, thank you for attending your, 100th warrant committee meeting, probably.
Who knows? But listen, of all the committees in town, you guys are, I know the importance of the Warrant Committee and respect all the hard work you all do.
Okay. Thank you. The next thing on the agenda is very vaguely worded. It's pretty much have the town administrator tell us everything he knows. Specifically, there probably is a budget update. Some of us may have heard some updates from other town meetings or committee meetings, and also, a brief overview of the non-budget warrant articles that are facing us. Sorry to be so vague, Mr. Milano, but
Well, good evening, everybody. Again, thank you for having me. I think, Mr. Chair, if okay with you, I would plan to just run through kind of the lay of the land on the warrant as it sits with the focusing on the non-budget articles, and I can provide a budget update after that conversation if that works for you sequentially. Great. So I will I'll share my screen just so as I walk through some of the articles, everybody can see them. We have had a sort of a late breaking update from the local historic district committee, who has notified us that they would like to withdraw the local historic district article related to the Milton Village local historic districts. They anticipate coming back for the fall town meeting. So not a withdrawal and going away, but rather just a withdrawal, more time, more work, and come back with what they hope will be a final product. So otherwise, that leaves, as things stand today, 44 articles, with that one coming off. The way the warrant is currently structured is all the budget articles will be taken up first, and then the non-budgetary articles follow at the end of those. And now I'll just shoot down and go through the non-budget articles now. I have distributed a draft version of the warrant. I don't know if Jay, you've shared that or not, but I can send an updated version if you haven't yet.
Yeah, I believe I did. It was a week or more ago.
Yep, that's right. All right, so I'll start with Article 37. It's a one-sentence article. This is accept the provisions of Chapter 60, 15B to establish a tax title collection revolving fund for the treasurer collector. So tax title is the broad term for when a property is delinquent in property taxes. The treasurer's office, collector's office will move that into tax title just to perfect our lien on the property. And then we'll start going through, sending demands and chasing for payment for the non-payment of taxes. Ultimately, after many months and sometimes years, that could mean to where the town would seek foreclosure to acquire the property. In a worst case scenario, I don't know when that has happened in Milton. It is quite unusual, but it's not unusual for properties to be placed, in lien just to ensure that if there's a sale, that the town has rights to the taxes that are owed to it. So that process can be expensive in the sense that there's a lot of work that the office has to do, mailings that we have to do, advertisements that we have to post. And under general laws, we're allowed to establish a tax title revolving fund whereby receipts from redemptions, when somebody makes full payment on everything they owe the town, the operating costs that the treasurer's office bears can be recouped by putting those payments into a revolving fund. So, the tax payment and the interest that they pay will go to the general fund as usual, but all the smaller fees and charges that drive the operating costs of the treasurer's office will remain with this fund. So it becomes a revolving fund. It could mean in future years we're able to reduce the appropriation for the treasurer's office once the fund is operational and working. We're not proposing to do that this year. So that's the gist. Is a lot of charges and expenses that we incur, we get paid back for all of those expenses when the property taxes are paid off. Those kinds of charges would remain in this fund to support future work related to tax title cases. So that's Article 35 on the tax title revolving fund. Article 36 is related to property tax exemptions. Over the last several months and really the last year, we've been looking at the tax exemptions we have accepted and what we haven't and what's out there, just to provide potential tax relief to folks, to make sure that we're doing what we can in terms of adopting potential provisions of mass law, general laws that allow for tax exemptions. So the first one, this article proposes to accept two provisions. The first is 59 Section 5, Clause 22I. So that would allow that the tax exemptions granted for veterans can increase annually by the cost of living. The Department of Revenue annually tells cities and towns what the cost of living increase would be for these various exemptions for veterans. So that would adopt that and put that in place rather than keep those exemptions at a flat statutory dollar amount. The ones that we generally grant right now are one is 22 A for $400 and 22E for $1,000 of the grants, the veterans exemptions that we typically give. They're related to service-connected disability. So going forward, those amounts would be adjusted annually by Consumer Price Index as announced by the Department of Revenue. The second one is a different section of the law, which would allow the phrasing a little funky. The bottom line is it would allow the exemptions for the blind, veterans, and seniors and surviving spouses to be doubled. So today, if you're a senior, you're eligible for an exemption and you meet the various income qualifications and your property meets a certain valuation qualifications, you're eligible for a $500 tax exemption. Under this provision, it would be doubled. It would be $1,000. And same thing for those veterans exemptions. If you get the $400 veterans exemption by accepting this provision, it would now be an $800 exemption. So the phrasing is legal and statutory, but that's the bottom line. I've put down here just what the different clauses are. I described them briefly. Clause 17 is for senior surviving spouses and minor children who meet various income qualifications. Is $175. There are a variety of exemptions for veterans. As I noted, the ones that we typically are people applying for are the $400 one, which is a 10% service-connected disability, or the $1,000 one for 100% service-connected disability. Clause 37 is for the blind, and Clause 41 is for seniors. Right now, these are about $80,000 a year, bouncing around that figure. So we would expect that to double potentially in fiscal 27 if this provision was accepted. So there is a cost to the town for doing so. And then that would also, slightly be adjusted if some of these exemptions are going to be increased by COLA, which the first half of this article would do. So that's the gist there, and at a high level. Happy to take questions as we go. So please interrupt me if there are any. Otherwise, I'll move on.
My question about that,
Yeah.
I know there's a line item in our budget for veterans benefits. That's a different thing?
Correct. In Massachusetts, veterans are eligible for what's called Chapter 115 benefits, which is a cash benefit. I believe we're the only state in the country that has that. So again, income limits apply and eligibility criteria apply, but it's a cash benefit that we pay out. It's a direct payment to veterans. The state reimburses us 75% of those costs. We pay it first. The state reimburses us. This would be paid on the municipal finance aspect. The assessors have what's called an overlay, where we put money aside for exemptions, tax abatements, appellate tax board cases. So exemptions, the senior property tax work-off program, those are all paid out of what's called the overlay, which is an appropriation within the annual budget.
Thank you.
All right. So we just talked a lot about Article 37. Just in terms of what this article as a borrowing article is, we've drafted it with town council and bond council. So if the recommendation is going to vary from the draft we put together and had town council and bond council review, I'll just have to have them review that. So as you're working through your recommendation, I've put a draft in here. That's good to go. But if there are tweaks to that recommendation, the article will remain unchanged. But if there are tweaks to the recommendation itself, just be cognizant that I will need to have that reviewed by both our town council and the attorneys who handle our debt issuances. And Article 38. So this is a broad authorization to allow the select board to enter into purchase of electricity or solar credits from a renewable energy facility. The genesis of this is that we have been approached by a company called Rewild to enter into a energy credit purchase agreement, whereby for the course of the agreement, 25 years, we will buy, essentially we will buy, not really buy energy, but we will buy credits off of a company that is constructing a solar facility. That would serve as a discount on our electricity bills. So, we'll be buying something for 75 cents that's worth $1, as an example. And we would use that to offset electricity costs. As we're working through the agreement right now, we have a draft underway. They are proposing a 17.5-cent discount for every credit. So it turns into savings, and under the the way solar works and the energy market works is there's a benefit to these entities to offload these credits onto municipal takers, and there's a requirement really that they do so. So we've been approached. A lot of communities have entered into these. Milton has not. So the risk would be that we, consume too much of our electricity load, and all of a sudden we have too many credits than we could actually use. So we're intentionally looking at 75 to 80% of our electricity load to tie up with these agreements. So that would put an upper echelon, end on how much that will be worth, but a range of $150,000 to $200,000 potentially in savings that we're still working through with the entity. So this is not. We would need authorization from town meetings to enter into a contract of that length. Is basically what we're looking for, is to allow the select board to enter into what is essentially a 25-year contract. Happy to speak to that in greater detail if necessary. And as the agreement itself works its way and receives select board approval, which we expect it will prior to the town meeting, we can share that with the warrant committee as well, so you have an understanding of what the potential agreement would look like.
Can I just ask on that? Does it seem the 25 years, you said we can enter into a contract for 25 years, doesn't that seem kind of scary and excessive?
Well, that is the
Risky.
risk. The risk would be that 15 years from now, electricity costs nothing, and we're still in some kind of legal agreement. So
Right.
yeah, that is the risk. That is the reality. I think then stepping back and thinking about electrification and expecting electrical load to only go up rather than go down, you would expect to mitigate some of that risk.
Or costs could go down.
That's true.
You know.
And if costs go down, we're still buying these credits at a discount. So, even if we were to store the credits in that scenario, they would then eventually be able to be utilized. But we're always buying it at a discount. And the credit value fluctuates based on basic service cost. So if Eversource's basic service rate goes down, the dollar value of the credit that we're buying goes down with it. So that's not necessarily a huge obstacle, because we're always buying it for less than it's worth, we're buying it for less than it's worth. Yes.
Does this help with the warrant article that we passed last year? We're meeting climate goals for the state. At the last warrant meeting, or the town meeting. Like, do they get applied against us reducing our energy by 50%? Or is that not applicable?
That is a good question. I have not considered that aspect of it. We were really looking at it as more of, supporting green energy and reducing cost. We're supporting green energy. I wouldn't say we're necessarily reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. We're basically buying a coupon, but we're still buying electricity. Our electricity load is still coming from somewhere else.
Right.
That Climate Action Planning Committee article from last year had very specific requirements. It was a very specific roadmap. So I guess we'd have to see if this is part of it. Brian.
No, that's it. I will double back, but I think the way they would look at it is our emissions have not technically changed, because our source of energy is still going to be the broader market. We're not buying the solar directly from these folks. So our source of energy is not necessarily the solar energy that this facility is generating. It's more of a financial transaction than it is an energy transaction.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right, so Article 39 is, in this article and the next several are all interconnected, interwoven for the same kind of goals. And this is similar to the prior article, where we're seeking authorization for the select board to enter into an agreement. So as we are looking at potential additional options for solar in town, town council has advised that if the solar operator who might come in and put solar panels on the roof of the fire headquarters, for example, may approach looking for an agreement for payment in lieu of taxes, which is allowed in Mass General Law regarding for renewable energy facilities. So this would authorize to enter into such an agreement. Otherwise, what happens there is they can get hit with a huge tax bill in year one, and it throws off kind of their cash flow. So this would, spread the tax payments that they'll owe over a longer period of time. So it's not that so it's an authorization because the select board otherwise can't enter into these kinds of agreements, and it's specifically for newer renewable energy facilities here in town. All right, so moving on to Article 40.
Sorry, are there any of those facilities currently in town?
There's solar on the schools and town hall currently. And I don't know what happened at the time. I believe what had happened, those are all now at least, I'd say, 10 to 15 years old. So they may have not been assessed taxes because the law changed around whether these facilities needed to pay taxes in the first place if they're on municipal property. Or they may have just paid them in the first couple of years and then the depreciation went to zero and they moved on. I can't speak to the past history. This is more for going forward.
Yep, thank you.
Sure. All right, so Article 40, 41, and 42 are all very similar in concept, but they each affect different locations differently. So what they each do would be to allow an entity to enter into a lease agreement, grant easements, and enter into a contract for purchase of electricity from a renewable energy facility. So the goal of each of these articles is to give us the proper authorization to put solar on additional facilities in Milton. So Article 40 is related specifically to the Milton Fire Headquarters, because it's a new building, new roof, designed to accommodate solar. We don't have solar on there yet. We're working towards an agreement to do so, and are seeking town meeting authorization to take that over the finish line. We have also included in this article town hall, as we have town-owned solar panels on the town hall right now. As we think about when those might be approaching end of life, we want to be ready to go to potentially take them off and have an operator go on. The concept for all of these is to have an outside entity come on, install the solar panels, own them, operate them. The town would purchase the energy at a reduced rate. Right now, we're working through an agreement on the fire headquarters for a rate at around 5 cents a kilowatt hour. Right now, we pay about 13.75 cents a kilowatt hour for electricity through our electricity purchases. So it's potentially just significant savings. But the concept of each of these articles is to get the legal authorization to put solar on additional facilities. Article 40 is related to the fire headquarters. That is priority 1A right now for us. That'll be the first one we see. We have also included the town hall. I also just want to flag this first pieces of each of these articles is there's a transfer vote in here. Town council has advised that they would like that the town meeting authorize the specific kind of use for each of these facilities. So in this case, we're voting to transfer it from the select board for general municipal purposes to the select board for general municipal purposes and for the purpose of leasing portions of the property for solar. So it's a bit of I'll use the word tedious. The town council might push back on that phrasing, but it's a step that they view as necessary to have complete and proper legal authorization to use the property in this manner. It's more important when we get to the animal shelter one, which I'll explain in a moment. So the rest of the article is granting the authorization to enter into these agreements. So Article 40 is related to the fire headquarters and the town hall, which are currently under the custody of the select board. Article 41 is, as you can see here, related to the library building. The library building itself today is under the care of the library trustees for library purposes. So the first part says to the library trustees for library purposes and for solar purposes. The parking lot next to the library, which some folks might remember was purchased when the library project was being done more recently. It was purchased and is held technically by the select board for library purposes. So it's proposed to be transferred to the library for library purposes and to the library trustees for the purposes of solar. So this would put those two properties under the control of the library trustees and give them the authorization on solar. The balance of the article, as we described, would be to give the library trustees the authorization to enter into a lease agreement and a power purchase agreement for solar. So the rest of the article is a mirror copy of the prior one. We are working through a proposal around solar on the library. The library is a more challenging facility in the sense that some of the roof is glass, some of it may not take solar. We're also at a point where now that building has been built for a while, so the roof has some years on it. So whether we necessarily want to be in a position to put solar panels on it now is a question we're still trying to wrestle with. So we're not 100% certain we might move forward with something, but we feel comfortable requesting the town meeting for authorization, so we're ready to do so if possible. So I'm not necessarily guaranteeing that this project would come forward, but we're just looking for the authorization now.
Okay. Andrew, do you have a question? I see Andrew and then Brian. I don't hear anything from you, Andrew.
Nick,
Okay.
is there any community solar options or ground-mounted solar options?
We are not looking at anything right now.
Okay.
At this time, this is what we're kicking the tires on is rooftop solar right now. And we've asked for proposals around potential canopies and if they pencil out, whether canopies might make sense at certain locations.
Yeah, because not even canopies, but just ground mounted. There's a lower liability and lower cost to putting. I'm assuming there's a suitable site to ground mount solar.
Yeah, we haven't identified a site right now, but if anybody has ideas, we'll take them.
Yeah, and the other option is obviously if there's a community solar generator in the area that the town can actually basically take a fractional share of.
Yeah, but to my knowledge, the town hasn't been approached historically. We haven't been approached recently from any developments that are going up. The one that we've been approached on is the energy credit purchase that I mentioned earlier,
Okay.
which is not a direct purchase of the energy.
Mm-hmm.
Brian?
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. I
Sorry,
looked
you
at
were
these
done,
two, and
Andrew.
I actually had a PowerPoint on this, but I think Nick's covering the points. I'm like generally in favor of this myself, but I think that the town should seriously look at purchasing solar panels versus leasing. I mean, it's always better to own versus lease usually, and they do last a long time, and you are subject, and they're very expensive. Solar panels are not. It's not cheap, but you can get a 30% federal tax credit for it. The government does let towns get that. So from what I see, which would help. But I do think something should be added instead of leasing. I mean, people are making money off of this. So why not have the town make money off of this? And these last a long time. So if it's like a 15-year payback, why not after 15 years, you're just making money by not having to pay for electricity. I think somebody should take a hard look at it if they do it. And maybe this should be reworded or added to it that option should be part of it.
We wouldn't need that. None of these articles would foreclose that or preclude it. What we would need in that case is really a capital appropriation to do that project, and then we could just do it. So we would need, capital appropriation to design it, to put it out to bid, build it, and then obviously a recurring operational expense to maintain from there. But the way we've looked at it is cities and towns weigh that all the time. Is it better to own it and get 100% of the revenue, or offload those expenses in the project itself and just buy at a greatly reduced rate? And we think the benefit of buying at a reduced rate is sufficient. But I don't disagree in concepts of what you're saying.
Yeah, I thought some of the language talks about pilot programs and the animal shelter language. I thought it was pretty specific to leasing, but maybe I'm wrong. But I
Correct,
think
because
I
we
would try
need these
to.
authorizations to lease, but there are buildings. If we had $500,000 to buy solar and put solar on the animal shelter, we could do that. We could do that without a warrant article other than the capital appropriation to do so.
Yeah. How about
So
community preservation funds? Is that something that would fall under this?
not for solar, no.
Okay, that's my thing because I think if it's something that in 10 years or something you might be happy to be getting free electricity in.
Brian, there is some financial risk around that, and the issue is that typically the panel lifespans have like a 20-year life or a 20 or 25-year life, and while the panels and the inverters themselves typically come with a warranty that will carry you through the bulk of that period, the warranties themselves the risk is that, and it's a very real risk, is that the panel or inverter manufacturer goes out of business before that warranty, in which case you have no coverage. So that
Right. I mean, you'd have to
that
buy, yeah. I mean, that is a thing. That is an issue. You have to maintain it. And you have other parts. The panels don't seem like they go, but everything else might go.
yeah, and
But you got to
that's why
maintain it.
typically why people are moving towards ground mounted, literally putting it on the ground rather than on a building, because it's much cheaper to
Oh,
put up panels on a field like you see on the side of a highway, as opposed to putting it on top of the building. And
I-
there's less liability involved in doing
high
that.
school parking lot would be great.
Mhm.
Yep.
Those have
Yeah,
costs
that I
also,
like
putting up
too.
the towers, but literally, I'm talking about literally on 6 feet off the ground on an open field.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the last one is, sorry, Brian, if I stole your thunder. The last one is, as we were just speaking about the animal shelter, this transfer vote is a little bit more convoluted. In 1954 or 58, when the town purchased all that land, the select board was authorized to purchase it. And they authorized and the town meeting also authorized the Board of Health to execute all powers on the property. So town council is advising that a transfer vote happen to transfer this piece of property from the Board of Health for Board of Health purposes to the select board for general municipal purposes. It appears at the time they expected the health department or the Board of Health to operate the landfill, I think was the genesis for that vote at that time. But now obviously it is not, and much of it is leased by Granite Link. So this is a big parcel up there. A small portion of it has the animal shelter on it. Our primary goal here is to put solar on the rooftop of the animal shelter. That's a 100% electric building. So both heating and cooling is done by electricity. So obviously to offset some of that cost, we would like to try to put panels on the roof. And again, that while a modular building was designed to take it. So again, this is a similar authorization article. And for kind of the municipal vendors that work in this space, it's too small for most of them. And they're not interested in the project. So we're still trying to figure out the best pathway. This may be one where maybe it does make sense for us to own, or alternatively, it might be more of like a commercial kind of smaller rooftop type solar installation than and then another one might be. So anyway, bottom line is authorization again, animal shelter, which is a new building, 100% electric, located up on the access road next to a golf course. Article 43, I will let the planning board speak about. This is the sign bylaw, which continues to be in progress, and the planning board's meeting this evening, and hopefully we'll have a final version of that tonight. Article 44 is is the historical commission related to the definition of demolition. We have a demolition delay bylaw that says that any building 75 years or older is subject to it. Demolition itself is not defined. So it's been treated as demolition means 100% removal of the entire structure. The historical commission's perspective is that that means, if you're demoing, 80% and all the historical elements are gone, but you're leaving some of it up, that means you can do so without review by the historical commission. They would prefer that projects like that be reviewed. So the proposed demolition definition is to broaden that to include historical elements, so that, if it's not just referring to the total destruction and demolition of a building. So it moves the needle on what kinds of projects would be subject to this review, and potentially subject to a 2-year demolition delay if it were to be so exercised by the historical commission. And that
I'll chime in and say, I think the historical buildings that this applies to, it's a moving target. It's like things over 75 years old or something. So
right.
Since it's 2025, 75 years ago is 1950. So I don't know if it's 75, 80. I don't remember, but it's
75. You're right.
It's things that you might not necessarily think are historical, which is not in the scope of this article, but just throwing that out there.
And I'll note that when they were first working through it, they were trying to come up like a percentage of a building that was demolished, and the building commissioner had concerns with kind of coming up with an accurate percentage on a case-by-case basis. So the language reflects essentially demolition of the historic features might be subject. And it's up to the historical commission can determine that those features are preferably preserved, and execute, as I mentioned, a delay, in which case the work can't take place for a period of 24 months if the folks who are trying to do the project wanted to proceed. The delay comes into effect then and there. If you want to wait 24 months, then you can proceed however you wish. But that is kind of the mechanism and the teeth that the historical commission would have to enforce it.
Yeah, sorry, I know we don't have on our agenda a full discussion of this right now, but yeah, I thought you previously said demolish of 25%. I guess that wasn't able to be workable, but this makes it sound like, a post-World War II house filling up, which there are plenty in Milton. If you take down any part of it, this applies. I'm sorry, I'm drifting into a fuller discussion of this article, which probably is not relevant for tonight.
And I would encourage that whoever is assigned to this committee, or to this article rather, speak with the building commissioner just in terms of our process, and to the historical commission, obviously. But if you're proposing to replace all the windows in a 1950s cape, you might be subject to it. So the application has to go to the historical commission, but they could look at it and say, this is run of the mill. We don't need to hear it. It's good to go. It would be in their court to make that determination first.
Thank you.
Sure. So that wraps the non-budget articles. If there's any other questions, happy to take them, or else I can just give a budget overview if you would like, Mr. Chair. I know it's depending on you and what you want to do for time.
Yeah, I think a budget overview is great. Yes, thank you.
Okay. So what I will do, just try to guide the conversation, is I'm going to pull up. These are not new slides that I put together, but they're like slides that just represent where we've come from or where things have gone in the past few weeks. All right. Okay, so I just want to share the first slide because I think this is the forecast that was January 6th, so a while ago. This was the first big number that was out there in terms of what the quote unquote deficit was to work towards, $2.4 million. At that time, we had asked the school department to reduce by 2.1. So I think that was the first big number that got out there in terms of what the ask was to reduce. Things have moved significantly since then, and I just want to explain what the adjustments have been since then. Town departments and the departmental budgets that you all have are level service budgets. I think everybody's spoken with department heads. So that is what our requests have been. and what we brought forward. I'll talk about the shared costs momentarily. But so since January, there's been obviously a number of changes, and I'll talk through those as to why the targeted deficit is much lower than that now. So some of the changes that we made in those 6 to 8 weeks have been that we reduced our debt service costs, which is large. It's just more of a shift from 27 to 28 rather than an outright savings. Our strategy on how we're going to fund or borrow for the Cunningham Collycott renovation project, because that's going to be a long-term bond. We have shifted our approach on that to issue it alongside the East Milton Fire Station debt, which shifts that cost from 27 to 28. So it's a cost we still will have to pay. It's just not going to be paid in 27. Where we worked with the school department to identify some reductions in the health insurance budget by charging other funds for health insurance costs if employees are paid by those funds directly. On the town side, we had an employee in the Milton retirement system who is being paid out of the general fund budget, and that should be shifted to the retirement system. So we're doing that. On the school side, the food service employees are paid 100% out of the food service fund. So for fiscal 27, the health insurance benefits will also be charged to that fund as well. So we're still paying the expense. It's just being paid separately and not being borne by the general fund. In addition to that, the governor's budget was released in mid-January, which means that state aid numbers we can update from a projection to an actual, and that resulted in a net increase of about $225,000 in revenue. We also took the opportunity to review our year-to-date collections on various local receipts and make some revisions on our forecast for revenue. So that nets out to a $400,000 increase in revenue. Largely from motor vehicle excise taxes. That has been a growing source of revenue that continues to jump each year. So we feel comfortable with increasing our forecast pretty substantially. We also expect to continue to collect on penalties and interest for at least fiscal 27. By the flip side, I did dial back our fee revenue for building department as there's a lot of projects happening right now, and there's a lot of projects that are going to start building. But I think all the large projects, say for 140B, will have all come in for building permits by the end of this fiscal year. So, these large 40Bs can have permit fees of hundreds of thousands of dollars. So while we brought in significant building department revenue in the last several years, it's being driven by these one-off extremely high payments. So we want to just be a little cautious as we're starting to head into a fiscal year where we don't expect necessarily that to continue. We expect business to be good with additions and renovations and new construction, but not necessarily new large multifamily projects. We reduced our general insurance budget, which we have continued to receive good news on our property insurance as well as our workers' comp. We had a significant adjustment on workers' compensation, so we're able to reduce our forecast on the general insurance budget. And lastly, we increased our proposed withdrawal from the operating budget stabilization fund. So taken all together, we have revised revenue numbers. Our revised revenue number as it stands today is $151,824,000 in the general fund. I've highlighted, the categories that have gone through recent adjustments. And then as of a few weeks ago, our balanced budget scenario that I proposed was asking the school department to reduce by $1,049,000. So, a significant reduction from the $2.4 million deficit that we were at, brought down to about $1 million reduction. What I'm showing right here is that budget with that proposal. So the school department ask was 5.2% increase year over year. I'm showing what that would be with the proposed reduction of $1,049,000. On the town side, the 3.72% increase meant that our level service budget was met with those revenues. As you can see here, health insurance assumed a 10% premium increase. Our debt service costs are our anticipated debt costs. just looking at the other shared expenses, I don't know that there's much more to draw attention to on that front. So the late breaking news as of this week is some additional reduction in expenses have come across on health insurance. We had been carrying a 10% premium increase last year. If folks remember, we had a 14% premium increase, so substantial increase last year. We had huge utilization and huge costs in fiscal 25 for the town's health insurance budget. We are self-insured, so we pay claims directly out of a health trust. So claims shot through the roof in fiscal 25, exceeded our revenues by about 20%. So we eroded the trust that we have significantly, which triggered that 14% premium increase. Medical costs continue to climb. However, our experience has stabilized. So we're having a stable fiscal year where we expect a little bit of a reduction in that trust because our expenses will outpace revenue a little bit, but not on the scale as of our current projection says that we saw in fiscal 25. So we feel comfortable with reducing our premium increase from 10% to 8%. Wish we could tweak that down lower, but with the uncertainty in the health insurance market and the medical cost world, we do need to continue to guard against jumps in cost and jumps in utilization. And one other factor that's brought that premium increase down from where it could be is that, and this has been in the news, is that insurers are dropping coverage for GLP-1s, drugs for weight loss, Wegovy, Ro, Ozempic, et cetera. So in Milton and our plans will no longer cover it for weight loss beginning on July 1st. That would be a substantial cost if it were still covered. I believe I saw today that the State Group Insurance Commission also voted to drop it for state employees and municipal employees who are on the state plans. And the Maya Health Benefits Trust, so Maya is an insurer that provides coverage for many cities and towns. They had also dropped it starting July 1st. So we're in the same ballpark as a lot of private employers as well as public employers. The other adjustment, just as a note of information, is we did increase our supplemental plans that we offer to retirees who are on Medicare. Our premium increase forecasts increased slightly for that. But overall, we feel comfortable with an 8% premium increase, which results in about $255,000 in expected cost, which is great, both for us and also for employees who will see that savings on a week-by-week basis. And then news as of today is that Blue Hills Regional announced their preliminary assessment, which is just about level funding with last year. There's one fewer student from Milton at Blue Hills. So their assessment to the town will be approximately what it was last year. Their costs went up, but the one student left. So that's about $71,000, and that's news as of late this afternoon. They announced that.
To clarify, that's a reduction because we were assuming it would go up.
Correct. And the reason we do that is a few students can trigger significant increases, and this cost has bounced around significantly over the last several years. So we try to carry a high number. So we're in this position of having to, have money to spend, rather than be in the opposite position of having budgets agreed upon, and all of a sudden now we have a $100,000 expense we didn't quite expect. So, together we have some money here to figure out what we're going to do with. And so that's just kind of the big picture in terms of the really big picture budget where things stand. I know there's been significant conversations, whether at school committee, the budget coordination committee, select board, et cetera. But where we were at the beginning of this week was trying to resolve $1,049,000 deficit. That has been further reduced by these two changes that you see on the screen today. And we're working to finalize our budget recommendation in light of these changes here. And the school committee last night spoke about where their budget sits as well. And I think that really, I didn't get too much into details. I think I'll leave it there unless, Mr. Chair, there's places you want me to take it, or if you want to just turn to questions.
I'll turn to questions, but I guess my first question is, so, you got to a certain point, and then on that last slide, we have an extra, let's call it 300,000. And I heard you on Tuesday asking the select board, or I don't know if you asked them, but they certainly gave you their opinion of things that it could be spent on. What's the best process here? Like, I want the warrant committee to be involved in the budget, but but relying on your professionalism and guidance. So you're going to give a first stab as to where you think that 300,000 should go, and then
Yes,
how should the warrant committee be involved with that? Do you
well, I
think?
think it ties back to the yeah, I think you asked me this question 6 months ago now. And I think then I said, if there are things that have stood out to you folks in your conversations with department heads, um, of places of need, that would make sense, then please share that with me. The select board was interested in seeing if there was any critical needs in town departments that we could try to fund with this additional funding, as the schools seem to continue to be proceeding under, without necessarily seeking this additional funding at this time. So that is where I'm going back through kind of the needs-based requests. I know we've heard from the police chief. I know we've heard from the library director, council on aging, and others in terms of potential places that might be of, fund some things that have sat unfunded for several years that would fill a critical need. I also want to just be very cognizant that the budget is going to be a challenge for the next couple of years. So, funding a need today means it's an additional expense for 28 and 29 and beyond. So it's just being careful to weigh those items. One thing that I've talked about with the superintendent has been, additional funding for consolidated facilities, because something always breaks. So maybe it makes sense to put some additional funding in the consolidated facilities budget. And if we're in a year where something doesn't break, then maybe they can go do some preventative projects that they wouldn't be able to do otherwise. And that's for town and schools. Where I'm at is we're reviewing the town departmental requests. I'll make some recommendations in the next couple of days, and share those with yourself, the select board, and others.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. And you're right. We don't have to spend that 300,000. It's not money burning a hole in our pocket. I don't know if we'll see how things shake out in the next week or two. Maybe if you could give us a recommendation, but also give a couple options.
Yep. So no, that's what I'm planning. I have a list of 4 right now that we're pulling together, and I'll share those as well.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have questions from the warrant committee?
Oh, I'll just add an addendum to that is whenever we're looking at adding people, we always look at adding the expense for the benefits as well. So, you may have heard, a $65,000 position at Department X, that would be salaries. You got to account for, and we typically look at it in terms of if they were to be on a family health insurance plan, which would be another $28,000. So, we try to keep the benefits in consideration when potentially adding positions. So I just want to add that nuance too.
Appreciate it.
So I guess my question, I can have one question, is what does that do, or what does that mean for, I think we described it as the budget stabilization fund in the last meeting that we had, where there was talk about figuring out a strategic plan for funding and spending that down. It sounds like none of those machinations are going to be required. But is there still a plan for utilizing that going forward? And it seems like that could be a good place for the $300,000 now to add to that for future discipline in the future.
Yes, so I think there's 2 elements of that. The first one is in fiscal 27, what's happening with the operating budget stabilization fund. So there's 2 elements happening in fiscal 27's budget. The first is under my proposal, $1 million of free cash will go into it. And we're proposing to take $935,000 out. So there's that is one transaction that's happening. Now, yes, to your point, could we say, let's just tuck that money away for a future year, and rather than have $1 million of free cash go in, have $1.3 million, and using round numbers, $1 million from free cash and $300 from the tax levy. That's certainly an option, and then that will help, in future years. So I would view that as a potential option for sure. And then, sorry, the second piece of the stabilization fund is how are we going to use it in 28, 29 and beyond, and how are we going to fund it in those years and beyond? And the that's a conversation that continues and will have to continue in earnest. And one of the things we're looking for right now is to keep refreshing our financial forecast with a more fine-tuned forecast from the school department to see what that looks like and share that with folks from there.
Because if I remember, it was 2.7 at the beginning of this year. It sounds like it's going to go up a little bit after you net out the free cash addition and the withdrawal you're going to make now. So that's good. Yeah, okay. So you don't have to manipulate that further. That's terrific.
Right. For 27 was it like you say, it slightly nets out. There's really $1.7 million going into it in fiscal 27 because there's 1 million in free cash we talked about, and then there's a recurring appropriation on the tax levy that was approved as part of the override. So every year there's going to be $700,000 plus 2.5% each year, and then
2.7
free cash will be over 2.71 in last year. So this year it would be 700 grand from the tax levy plus $1 million
plus
from free
million
cash.
minus the 9. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. That's great.
And Mr. Milano, I believe the way you said we're taking out 935, I believe the way you came up with that is we're taking out the 700,000 that the tax levy put in this year that we're currently in. And since we're putting in $1 million, it's similar to what we discussed earlier. We're taking out almost $250,000 of that. I feel like things are a little in flux in that we have several competing proposals for how to run this fund, but for now, we're getting by on the seat of our pants with taking out the 700,000 that we put in the previous year and taking out a little bit less than $250,000 we're putting in.
Correct.
So if you just say we're putting in $1 million and we're taking out 935, it sounds like
you're right.
We're playing three-card Monte here, but that's not exactly what's going on.
The recurring portion is coming out, which is about $700,000, and then the $1 million is proposed to come out 235 in the first year, and then increasing 5% for the following 3 years. So that $1 million is expected to stretch over the course of 4 fiscal years as it stands today.
Yeah, and that's the Warrant Committee has heard my proposal on that, as has the Budget Committee of the Select Board, and things may be. We may be settling out on something in the next few weeks, but that wouldn't necessarily change what we're taking out in FY27. Keep it simple.
Agreed.
Other questions I'll ask for other questions from Mr. Milano, but I'll also pass on a question that Mr. Milano had for me, which was all of us have had parts of the budget we've looked at. Some of them are big parts we presented to the group. Some of them have been small parts and we haven't. Mr. Milano asked for me, any budget concerns? Specifically, has anyone looked at part of your budget and decided that's too high, it can come down? You don't have to answer tonight, but that's one of the questions that is before the Warrant Committee is you've all looked at pieces of the budget. Do any of you think have concerns in general or specific think it can be reduced? Brian, I see your hand raised.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's along the same lines, but question. You town and school want to maintain level service for these budgets, I presume. And you had in this, country or the state had a 3%, roughly for the last 2 years, each year was 3% inflation rate. But both the town and the school are going up more than 3%, assuming that they go along with that. Is there any type of exception, which I think, you have to maintain cost of living for people. I think you should. So I think you should be at least like 3% increased. Is there any exception report as to what's causing what's over the 3%? Why is it?
Speaking of the town departments, I think you're referring back to kind of the initial forecast, and the way we pulled that together was to say, if our revenues are X, what can our expenses be? So we drove it from kind of the revenue side, and we said, if our revenues are X, then salaries can go up by Y, and general expenses can go up by Z. So I don't want to say it's like any kind of an official benchmark. It was more just like a revenue-driven forecast. What is driving, why are we above the 3% this year? I think we've seen savings in certain budgets due to turnover. But what that does mean is sometimes we have younger departments in a couple of departments. So they might be jumping steps year to year, which exceeds like a 3% benchmark on a cost of living adjustment that they might get otherwise. So you might see salary increases that are a little bit higher than we might see normally if employees are at the beginning of their career and are progressing through steps on their salary schedule. We've budgeted for collective bargaining. We don't know what those agreements are going to look like. So it's a little bit still of estimating as to what those actual costs could be. You try to budget conservatively on that. In terms of our general expenses, I think a few departments are jumped up a little bit on general expenses. The IT department, and I think that's been reported back as to some of the costs that they're experiencing. So their budget jumped year to year, really just driven by cost of doing business, and our contracts for services have jumped. And then another example is same thing at DPW. We did budget in that 3.76 is a proposed, I'm sorry, 3.72 is a proposal to increase the snow and ice budget, which hasn't gone up in I don't know how long in Milton, but we budget $160,000 for snow and ice. Of course, now we're in an outlier winter. We're going to be well over that, but we're proposing to increase that by $90,000 to $250,000. So it's just another place where it's an outside the norm increase. And I think that's really it across the board in terms of the town department. I think those are the big kind of outliers. Everything else has been pretty kind of middle of the road. We've encouraged departments to adjust for contractual expenses, but I don't think there's anything too outside the norm other than those few things that I pointed out.
Is there one spreadsheet though that has this data? Or do you have to go to each one? You can't say, well, these are outside.
No, that's a good point. I have a standalone. I will get that out. I should be able to distribute that tomorrow.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Yes, no, sorry. You have the very, very deep detail, but I don't know that you have an updated kind of overall summary, which will pull in salaries and expenses by each department. The backup you'll need the other sheets for, but that'll give you the summary level, department by department.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Nick.
We'll surely have Mr. Milano join us again in the next month, but if there are no other questions about the budget, Mr. Milano, can you stay on for our next item, which will be, I'm switching the last two items on the agenda. I'd like to talk about our upcoming meetings and scheduling.
Sure.
So this is sort of open to everyone. If I look out, I see, well, Mr. Milano, when does the warrant have to go to print? I've been thinking April 1st, but give or take April 1st.
That date works for me, yes, if that's
Okay.
what you're using. Yep.
Yeah, definitely lie to us and don't tell us the date it actually has to go to print. Give us, predate it by a
We've
week.
shrunk that turnaround because we get them like a final. So April 1st is good, and I think that's a good day to use.
Okay, so there are 5 Mondays between now and April 1st, one of them being the 30th of March. Don't want to push things that far. So what I'm wondering is, so let's schedule out, team, how we're going to get this stuff done over the next, let's try to make it over 4 meetings. I've got a list here of all the things we'll need to talk about. Adds up to about 10 hours, although we've taken up 1 hour of Atherton Fire Station already. Elaine, yes.
Julie and I just spoke to Mark Loring, and he can attend a meeting with us on March 16th, just so you know.
Great.
He thinks he's going to double check, but that's what we penciled in.
I will pencil that in. Okay, thank you. So, one thing I said the next meeting is Monday, which is 4 days from now. I said, or midweek, because I thought that might not be realistic. I was texting Ron, who is I just keep calling it Historic Destruction. I think it's a great title. the one we talked about tonight, historic destruction. He says he can talk about that this coming Monday, a few days from now. Is there anyone else who's prepared to speak to things this coming Monday? Brian, did you say you're ready to talk about your?
I think I could talk about insurance. Nick's here. I just asked him one question if we got the final insurance numbers in,
Okay.
and that would probably help. But I could still do a presentation on it.
On the insurance or on
Oh,
the?
insurance and solar. I could do both.
Okay, great.
I will.
Yeah,
I'll take
I
up.
don't know how much
I'll
or
be
how little
quick.
we'll need to talk about insurance, but
Okay.
and solar, and so I've in my mind I'd assigned you like the three or four solar articles and that energy credits one. Those are all the
Yeah.
same in my mind.
Right.
Are we on?
Nick kind of went over most of it anyways, but sure.
Okay,
I could
great.
do it.
So I'll say that you're doing that for this coming Monday.
Yep.
Okay, so that's two things. Trying to front load as much as possible. Cecile, and I don't, I apologize if not everybody saw these emails. Cecile, the tax credits, the doubling the tax credits, et cetera, that we talked about earlier. Have you had a chance to look at that? Do you know when you'd like to speak to that?
Yeah, I'm putting together a presentation. I have kind of a lot of questions, so Nick, I think I'll probably reach out and schedule some time to talk to you, but I don't think it'll be ready for next Monday.
That's
Maybe for
fine.
next meeting. Yeah.
Maybe the next one, maybe 3-9.
Yeah, I think that should work.
I'm not trying to twist your arm. I'm just trying to.
No. Yeah, I think 3-9 should work.
Okay. Um, that same meeting, Meredith Hall said she could visit us and talk about the sign by law on 3-9. For several of these, you'll see, I was thinking we'd need two meetings, like Atherton, tonight and another meeting. The sign by law might be part of two meetings. 3-9. Um, I'll turn it over to Larry and Macy, who are on two of the biggest ones this season, Atherton and the sign by law. What dates do you want to talk about these?
I spoke to Meredith yesterday, so I'm prepared for 3-9. And
Do you think
yeah,
we get it all
Macy,
done that night? Soup to nuts?
let's see what else we got going on there. Tax credits. Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I don't know. We'll see. I think so. I mean, we've talked about it so many times before, and it's a
We
lot of the
have.
same changes. They just clarified everything and made it a little bit tighter, you know.
Okay.
So I think we can probably I think we can do it.
Okay. So maybe one meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
60% confident.
Not a problem. James Lee isn't here to talk about the tax title fund. That did sound pretty straightforward. Um, Cecile and Andrew, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the CPA or Mr. Milano, if you want to say you seem to Mr. Milano gave me the impression it might be more involved than in other years when it was, yeah, CPA guys. You have a budget, you spend on what you want to spend it on. Go on with your life. So
The
I don't know if that's a
third,
question to Mr.
the,
Milano.
the third CPC article with the borrowing authorization for the
That's
Wharf Park
awesome.
project it's the first time they're doing a borrowing authorization. It's a large project down at Wharf Park where the farmers market meets. So that one is a little bit, not say outside the norm, but it's just a larger, more significant project than they funded before.
Okay. So yeah, Andrew and Cecile, I think we were hoping you'd talk to the CPC guys, hear them talk about all their projects, which they love to talk about, but especially learn a lot about the Wharf Park. Is that I don't want to rush that. Is that something maybe 316 and 323? Or am I being too cautious? Andrew and Cecile?
Jay, I think because you've been presenting, I saw Andrew sent an email. I think we might need to
I saw he sent an
discuss.
email too.
Yeah, I haven't started looking at it personally.
That's fine. I'm going to pencil in 316 and 323. And if you guys need help with that, uh, you know, Ron, one of Ron's biggest projects got dropped, and Ron has to recuse himself from some budget items. So if you guys need help, I'm sure Ron can help with it. All right, I'll pencil that in. Talking about the budget, tax title fund. Okay, so this is helping. Is there anything else we can get done on the second?
Do you purposely not have schools in here?
I very little of what I do is on purpose. I mean, I'm saying that schools will visit on 316.
Right. So, okay.
And I'm
And
also I had this, it was a little bit pessimistic. I thought if there were really big budget questions that we had to resolve, for example, what do we do with free cash? Do we put it to a special ed stabilization fund? Do we put it to a different stabilization fund? Questions like that. I thought we might want a meeting with where we have the select board and school committee being invited. I might have been a little too pessimistic. Maybe there won't be contentious questions like that. But sorry, all that is to say, I had one extra meeting penciled in case we have big budget issues that we need to decide that we want to be sure we're on the same page as the other boards in town. That would be that.
okay.
And then, we're having the schools visit likely on the 16th.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
yeah,
Sounds good.
that's that.
And
So that
oh,
gives me
sorry, Jay.
go
And the
ahead.
schools are likely gonna vote on the final version, their final version of the budget, 2 days after that visit. So we will have some time. Maybe it is good to schedule some time to talk about it after that.
Okay. Okay. We're sort of blending into the next item, the next and only other item on the agenda, which is discussing the school's budget. I appreciate y'all indulging me and working with me to schedule these things. So we're looking a little light for Monday, but we'll get things knocked off. We'll get this historic destruction knocked off. We'll get all the solar and energy credits knocked off. As far as I'm concerned, we'll vote on those articles this coming Monday. Um, okay. I appreciate your help scheduling that. Mr. Milano, you're welcome to stay or go. We're going to be discussing the school budget now. And
Thank you. Did you, I'm sorry, maybe I missed it. So the second date for Atherton is still TBD?
correct.
Or are you planning to do that Monday?
No, definitely not Monday. Um,
Okay.
Still TBD.
Okay.
I'll say
I
three
will
six.
plan to be available on Mondays through March as annually, I usually block those Mondays off. So I
Okay.
will be available each and every Monday if needed. Just we can coordinate at a time and I will, but I'll just be around every Monday. So
Okay. Thanks a lot.
thank you.
Okay. And I'd like to turn it over to the school subcommittee. I know they've had a couple discussions with their counterparts on the school committee, and feel free to take it away.
Um, Hi. Julia, do you want to start or do you want me to start?
Go ahead.
Okay. So I've been attending via Zoom the finance subcommittee meetings of the school committee for the last several weeks. And just yesterday, as well as in a meeting with Julia and I today, the school committee gave us their most recent version of their proposed cuts to meet that gap that Mr. Milano was talking about of a little over $1 million. Do we have a visual on that, Julia? Because I don't, you do. Thank you.
Yeah, hang on. I'll pull it up, but you can keep going.
Okay, I'll keep talking. So when Acting Superintendent Phelan first spoke about this, even before the February school break, he said that what they wanted to emphasize was no cuts at the elementary school level for teachers in front of students, no cuts for art, PE, or music, no reduction in clubs, athletics, or transportation, no reduction to just
Julia, I don't know if you're sharing the correct screen.
no reduction to adjustment counselors or guidance counselors, and no reduction to reading or math. Acting Superintendent Phelan also emphasized, thank you, Julia, for pulling that up, also emphasized that he and he was talking, so I don't know if he was really speaking for the finance subcommittee or for the school committee as a whole, but he said that 5.2% going forward, they recognized, or he recognized, was not sustainable. And while it's true that 80%-ish of the school's budget is built around salary, he also recognized that that the way to reduce that year-to-year increase in spending was to actually reduce some positions. And so what you have in front of you is the most recent update to their cut list. So what's in gray and blue, the high school English teacher, what's in gray and blue are the actual proposed cuts that they are going to make to their budget proposal to be able to get in line with the $1 million gap or thereabouts. And what they're putting back in, they originally had, what's in orange here, they originally had in the cut list, but when they released it, and I think this was a week ago Wednesday, when they released it, they heard back from members of staff, families, community members, and they decided to add these back in. So they're adding back in the middle school special education teacher. The BCBA stands for a board certified behavior analyst, and they work with special education. They had originally said they were going to cut those two positions and have those the work that those individuals do subsumed either into contract work from outside or into internal staffing. But after hearing back from community members, they decided to put those things back into the budget. So really what they've reduced, they originally had reduced over $1 million, but here the reduction is a little over 800, well, it's 831,000 and change. And then if you look at the next slide, great. These are things that they're adding to their original budget proposal. They're going to add a bus. They've needed a bus. This I know from personal experience, but they've needed an extra bus for quite some time. And then the way that they're going to take care of some of the reductions that you saw on the previous slide is to, for instance, the director of nursing that was cut on the previous slide is going to be taken over by a lead teacher stipend of $6,000 for one of the nurses at one of the schools. We have 7 nurses. This will maintain 7 nurses, but one of the nurses will take on the lead position and get a $6,000 stipend. Same thing with the director of fine and performing arts that was cut on the previous slide, a small stipend to have a lead teacher take over those duties. They're adding back in, I don't know how much you want me to get into each one of these things. If anybody has questions about it, we just asked the finance subcommittee of the school committee quite a lot of questions about these things. But if you get to the black line in the middle of the, I guess these are light green. If you get to the black line in the middle, you will see that the things that they've decided to reduce so that we can get back to that $1 million are general expense lines. They're going to increase user fees for bus, activities, building use. They're getting back to us about what exactly those numbers are that they expect to increase the bus fees, etc. They're going to make an adjustment to the stipend budget. It has to do with what they actually spent in FY26. And they are willing to increase their usage of the circuit breaker funding by $400,000, which is good to see. Originally, I think you all have heard this, but I'll just repeat it. Originally, they started out FY26 with less than $9,000. We might have a slide on that. I don't know. And what Acting Superintendent Phelan proposed was a very aggressive plan was a plan over the course of 3 fiscal years to reimburse circuit breaker back up to a level where it would be fully funded or fully funded according to this formula that is about 75% of actual circuit breaker funds. So you see there's a green section on this one and 2 yellow sections at the bottom. The green section was the original plan from the school committee finance subcommittee for how to address the need to reimburse circuit breaker up to a reasonable level, and that what they consider the reasonable level is 2.6 million. And so to do that over 3 years, it really required very little drawdown in circuit breaker, as you can see by these numbers. But when we talked to Mark Loring today, he said that given last night's meeting of the school committee, even though they didn't take a formal vote, everyone seemed to be in alignment with, instead of going aggressively for 3 years to get circuit breaker back up, they would go with a slower 4-year plan, which would allow them to draw down on circuit breaker at an increased level of $400K each year. So instead of spending 2.6 million, they would spend 3. So yeah, Julia, jump in.
For me, I don't know how closely any of you have been following these conversations, but as Lorraine said, I actually think it was the meeting on before February break where they first sort of announced the proposed cuts. And then last night, based on the feedback they got over, I think, the previous 2 weeks, they announced, that they presented that revised list of cuts and that detail on some of the reallocations that they're doing. And then to me, the biggest takeaway from our meeting today with them was this piece that they, I think they did take into consideration what I think, I give Jay credit. I think it was Jay who sort of came up with this potentially, different way of doing things that would hopefully result in fewer cuts, although a bit longer to build back up the circuit breaker account. And I know Jay presented that to all of us at the end of January. So I was pleased to see that they were willing to consider that. And it sounds like, and he said, like, for now, these are the numbers that are now going into our budget. And like, this is what they're working with. It's this option 1 here at this point. So they have another meeting, they have regular finance subcommittee meetings on Wednesday mornings. And at the next one, it sounds like is the first time that the school committee will see that hyper detailed, what did she call it? I have notes here somewhere, but line level
Line.
detail budget.
Yeah.
That's like, 60 something pages that we saw last year for the schools. So we are hoping to get our hands on that in the next week. And that will allow us to really dive into the nitty gritty and be prepared with any questions we have for when Mark comes before all of us, or determine if we need to schedule another finance subcommittee meeting with them before the 16th. But no, I think Elaine, I think you covered all of the big points.
Thanks. Not sure if this is the right place. I don't think we should start discussing it. So I do have some concerns about where they're making cuts, because as I said at the very beginning, Acting Superintendent Phelan was very clear about not wanting to cut bodies in front of students, and that is some of where they've cut. So yeah, I'll be interested in hearing what Mark Loring has to say when he visits.
And I felt there were numerous nods during our meeting with them tonight of still, this is not final because they are still, waiting for community feedback. They're going to have a forum. What was it, the 11th that's happening?
Yes, they're having a budget hearing on the 11th.
Yeah. So, there are certainly there's certainly still the opportunity for people to give their 2 cents. So I would encourage anyone here and anyone watching who has feedback to make sure that you convey that to the school committee, because they are anticipating it and are sounded to me like ready to listen.
I appreciate that. And what I've already said to Julia and Elaine is that the warrant committee wants as much information as we can get as soon as possible. So what do you call the line level detail? If we get our hands on that next week and then things are going to change in the next couple of weeks, I'm still a happy person because we've got the details. 97% of that is going to stay the same and maybe 3% will change. So
that's exactly what we said to them tonight. And it sounds like Katie kind of holds the keys to that. And so she just was waiting for the superintendent sign off to share that with us, but no one anticipated any issues with that.
You said that Mark was talking about, probably can't grow 5.2% per year. I know it's sort of an open question of, it's all mixed in with how do we use the operating budget stabilization fund and when we're going to have an override. So, but we still don't know how much they'll be able to grow from year to year. But did he say more about that?
That was Acting Superintendent Phelan, who said that the reason it was good that they were attacking this with salaries rather than something else was that it would tend to help that 5.2% increase year over year. So it sounds like he's very much focused on trying to create a sustainable plan going forward.
But that being said, I felt like I was hearing, the warnings that this will not necessarily be the end of the cut, that we shouldn't expect there won't be cuts in future years if they are held to an unrealistic year over year growth rate.
Okay, that's interesting. But as you know, it's what I just said. It's all tied in with how we're using the operating budget stabilization fund. So they don't get 5 point. I wonder if they're being overly pessimistic in, if they're thinking they're going to get 2.5% year over year and they're making cuts based on that, but then it's going to turn out that they get 4.5% each year. I don't know if we're on this. Well, first of all, nothing's settled there, and second of all, I don't know if we're on the same page with looking forward.
Yeah, I'm unclear on what number they're currently using for their future projections.
Yeah. And the townwide budget committee that Brian and I are on, we're talking about that. We're asking them for, what's your school's future forecast for year over year? Um, it's an ongoing conversation.
Yeah.
So,
Something that I brought up at the end was also just that, it could be helpful for them to consider in their messaging over the next few weeks. You know, are certain positions being eliminated because we're overstaffed? And, I think people can understand that kind of a cut and how that we might have gotten there with COVID and everything, um, versus, oof, this one's going to be painful, but we need to do it. So, as I said on that previous meeting, not that I want to categorize everyone's jobs into those two categories, but I just think it can help it can help the public understand that, like, actually this, regardless, of our budget situation, this position isn't really needed anymore for reasons X, Y, and Z. And then, yeah, let's acknowledge, like, none of us want to see this one go, but got to make tough choices in these tough financial times.
thank you for bringing that up because, yeah, I listened to their last night discussion, and it did sound like they thought quite a few of the positions they were cutting them because they thought they could be cut. Uh, I, I can't speak for them, and I can't speak for all the positions they're cutting, but I certainly got that impression. So, yeah, that sort of clarification would be helpful for us and for the public. So, sorry, who was it you met with tonight?
Mark, Nathan, and Katie.
I thought you said John Phelan.
No, I think Elaine's referencing the school committee meeting last night.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, a previous meeting that we had with him.
Okay. Brian?
Elaine, when you were showing the cuts, the reductions on the head count, were those reductions from their budget or those reductions from their actual 2026 people? Like they had a previous budget.
Right.
What changes that represent?
Some of the things that they listed as cuts that I talked about as cuts are currently unfilled positions that will remain unfilled for fiscal year 27 in order to, close the gap. But part of what they're doing is taking those unfilled positions and filling them, but in a different position with less money, and then using more circuit breaker. I don't know if that answers
so
your
they're
question.
unfilled in 2026.
Some of them are like
Some of them.
3, I think.
Okay. Oh, okay. Not like a lot. So those were, but the other ones were actually, like, those positions are all in the 25, 26 budget, except for those
These top three here. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess my second question is, I do get concerned. I mean, I don't know, they wanted to eliminate some, but then put them back due to political pressure. And I wonder if they felt they were right to eliminate them or, but
I
that's
don't know that
probably
it's
not a question you
political
can answer.
pressure so much as what they heard from the people who would be directly impacted by the cuts. So, I think at this point it's kind of a conversation's not the right word, but like I said, they are open to hearing from the town about these proposed cuts.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We have other questions?
And these finance subcommittee meetings are all recorded now, so you're welcome to find them on. I mean, there's a bit of a lag time in them getting posted, but if you're interested, you can watch them all.
Okay, thank you. And this will come up again when, likely on the 16th when we think some of the members can visit us. And All right, I think that's it for the evening. Anything else anyone wants to bring up?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
All right,
Seconded.
motion to adjourn. A reminder, we'll meet on Monday.
Mm.
And all right, there's been a motion to adjourn, a second.
Second.
Everyone get yourself off mute and say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Good night. Thank you,
Good
everyone.
night.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.